Hey, Jeni Hott is here with us. Hey, thank you. Look at her shirt, guys. Look at her shirt. Yeah,
I like this.
bottom.
Pretty-
Nice, 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 nice. Love it, love it, love
I
it,
like
love it.
it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for this.
Yes, you're welcome. Looks good on you. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. Um, and so Jenny is here again. So delighted to have her again with us. You can look at our YouTube channel and see the first video we did. And so we want to do some more. She's so delightful and great, gracious with her time and her giving back. And that's just a whole big thing with her. It's just so much to even mention. I'll be here for a long time talking about it. So I'm so glad. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much.
My
um,
pleasure.
Looking out your time and all of the stuff that you're doing. And any time you feel free to mention anything that you're doing. So I'll leave it up to you.
Well, thank
But
you.
so yeah, so she's a world's like best bloggers and got the biggest heart. I also find it so hard to never mention to always mention that. It's not just about what she does in business, but who she is as a person. It's why I really, really, really appreciate her and really love everything that she does and everything about her. And so she's but for business world, she's the best blogger in the world. And so I'm happy to have her to sort of talk through. We're going to talk through some of her strategies and some of the things that she does that's going to help a lot of people, not only me, but help a lot of people. So I had got a little plan as far as how we'll talk about it. Jenny, I want to talk a little bit about some of the your vision. I love like your vision and love how you talk about the hierarchy of needs and these sorts of things, and it all sort of fits into your business. And then we want to talk about the nuts and the bolts, and then I want to talk about the vision because I'm a big person. I like the dream, I like the vision, I like the why that you talk about of like why do you want to do this and what do you want to be and what do you want to see yourself doing. So I think it all fits into our mantra into what we do. And so I'll let
Yeah,
you down on
absolutely.
that a little bit more because it's definitely for me. Um, so I won't go through the entire story, but I definitely want to get there. All right, so you started blogging in about 2006, became one of the world's first seven-figure blogger. Now, so let me ask, seven-figure blogger, what does that mean? Is that seven-figure blogger a year, a month? What does that mean?
I well
Not to talk about your business, but
that year I hit six figures a month.
six figures a month. Wow, that's
Yeah,
a 6 figures a month.
yeah,
Wow.
and it hasn't been that every year. And as I've made changes and realized that my focus was more on serving people, like the money wasn't a driver for me.
Sure.
So it's come and gone. Like not come and gone. It's always been really really comfortable, but it hasn't always been seven figures every year. But
But for as your mantra and what you live by is that this whole thing of, hey, you want to control your life too. So it's not that you just sit around, behind your computer and working day in, day in, out, day out. I think the freedom for me, I think is the not. I think
you know that's not me.
I know, I know. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. So we'll save it. Um, so I know one of the first things that you ask yourself is, what do you want? And like, what is your purpose? So what was that for you?
Yeah.
Like when you said like, what do you want? Like, what was that for you?
What did I want personally?
Yeah, personally, yeah, yeah.
Oh, so I think I know I talk about this story where I was working in Puerto Vallarta at the time. I had left my jobs in New York and had come to Puerto Vallarta, and I started doing like these. Well, I was bartending sometimes, and I was doing these part-time like PR jobs, like marketing stuff that I'd done back in the city. And I had this pivotal moment where I realized like that wasn't what I wanted to do. I had this really, really high maintenance, kind of overly dramatic client. And as I was leaving her shop, I got to this street, which is this really famous street in Puerto Vallarta. I don't know. Have you ever been there?
No, I haven't. I feel like I
Okay.
have to listen to your story. Right?
There's this famous street called Olis Alta Street, and it's this cobblestone street. It's been there forever. It's an old town. And I was walking across those cobblestones across the street. And like I remember looking down and looking at the cobblestones and looking at my sandals on the stones and just stopping in the street, a little over to the side, just enough not to get hit, but cars are going around me. And I'm stopping going, oh my God, this isn't what I want. This isn't what I left New York for. This isn't what I left, New Jersey, whatever. I was back and forth working there. It wasn't what I left to come, I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to do that same corporate, grind kind of thing. And I remember just thinking, like, this isn't what I want. I don't want these kind of clients. I don't want this little money. I don't want to have to chase down my paycheck. And that full year, I had made $1,300 for the year. That was my salary. Like, that was the amount that I brought home. Really? So yeah, brutal, right? Mm-hmm. So I just realized, like, all these things that were running through my head, really powerful. I don't want this. I don't want that. I don't want this. I don't want that. And then I thought, oh my goodness, like, this is actually really great. Now I know what I don't want. Mm-hmm. What is it that I do want? Mm-hmm. And I started thinking about it, and I'm still standing in the street and cars are going around me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I must have stood there. I don't even know. I think honestly, it probably was close to an hour, but I just had this defining moment where I was like, okay, I want to be able to sleep until noon if I want to. I want to be able to take off work if I don't want to work. I want to be able to, I don't ever want to have to answer to I was saying it in positive at this point. I was saying, I want to be able to buy my parents a house if I want to. I want to be able to help my sister if she needs money. Like, I want to be able to travel the world. All these things that came to my head. And at the end of it, I went, this is really amazing. And I'm going to make a promise to myself right now that never again will I accept anything, no matter how much money it is, mm-hmm. that doesn't allow me to have these things. And so I went home and I was looking online, and I'm thinking, okay, something on the internet would let me do all these things, right? I could travel. I could hopefully make a good amount of money. So I started looking online, and I came across, like, Joel Comm, who at the time, really nice guy, by the way. So at the time, he was making about $500 a day, and he was writing about it online. And he was making $500 a day from just a little, old-fashioned site. This is back in 2005 or whatever, or 2006. And I thought, well, if he's making $500 a day, I can make something. So I thought, I'll give it a try. I had done some coding and stuff because I had done a little bit of playing with internet marketing in the past. Mm-hmm. So I was like, all right, well, I can't really do a lot of coding. So I came across WordPress. It was extremely primitive then, so I still had to do a lot of coding on my own. So you'd put a plugin in, mm-hmm. and the whole thing would break. Mm-hmm. The whole thing would go down. So I would have to code a page in basic HTML. We're talking like old-fashioned AOL looking pages. Mm-hmm. So I would code the page in HTML that was my sales page that I could not afford for that to go down. And then I'd have WordPress, and I'd link the pages together. And my first site was a travel site. It was about Puerto Vallarta, like an insider's view of Puerto Vallarta. Mm-hmm. And it did pretty good. I started with just Google AdSense, and my first goal was to make $33 a day. Oh. I think you've seen that, right?
Yeah, of course.
My first my first goal was 30. That to this day is my. You what?
37 is my number. That's my number. So I know you're 33. 37.
Is it?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
So, football number. It's
when I calculated. Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, when I calculated how much I needed to be comfortable in Puerto Vallarta, how much I needed to pay my rent, how much I needed if I wanted to go out, and have dinner with my friends and hang out, I needed $33 a day. Wow. So that was my first goal, was $33 a day. Yeah. So I started, working on the site, and as you know, I was working so hard. Like, sometimes I really was working more than 24 hours a day. I was thinking about it, and I think it was like 18. And I thought about it, I'm like, no, there were times when my boyfriend at the time would say, you haven't slept today. Like, I wouldn't eat unless he put food in front of me. And I was working so hard that my wrists were just from here to here, just black, blue, purple. I mean, I was a mess. I'm wrapping him in ace bandages. I was taking Advil. I had a bottle of Advil, looked about like this, big bottle of Advil, and I would just take them constantly because my wrists were hurting so bad by then, like the few months of just constantly working. So it took me a few months to hit that $33 a day. And my mom jokes because she's like, I remember you saying, like, oh, I made $1 something today. I made 90 cents today. Like, and it was going up, but every day, like, oh, you made $3 today. Oh, I made this. And I was so excited. But within a few months, it took me to start to make $33 a day. Then I thought, okay, now I want to make double. So I would aim it for $66 a day. Another few months I would hit that. Okay, now I want to make $99 a day. So it'd take me a few months and I would hit that. Once I got around that time, That had been about 6 months, and my wrists were so bad I couldn't type. Like I couldn't pick this glass up if I tried. Like I was crying. I would go like this and go, okay, I can't do that right now. Like I was like, I'm gonna need some straws. It was pretty bad. So so that's when I made the choice, like, okay, I don't want to ever have to push my body like this. And I don't want to ever have to work this hard again, especially if I want to start doing some traveling at some point. And I was starting to get, the hang of what was connecting people, what was starting to draw them in.
So let me ask you, let me ask you this before we go on. What were you doing? What were you doing so much, writing so much, working that much?
Answering questions.
Oh.
So I would look in at the time, like Google was still pretty new. Like, I mean, it was not new, but it wasn't what it is today. So you didn't have the tools you had. You didn't have like all the keyword research things. I did have, back then I had, was it Market Samurai? But even that was really difficult to use. And actually I didn't even have a right license to use it because I was in Mexico and you couldn't get it back then. So everything was really guessing, trial and error, trial and error. But what I did was I would go into the Yahoo forums or other forums and see the questions that people were asking. And then I would start to write articles that were answering those questions.
Oh.
And then and that was my first step. Oops, sorry. That was my first step on really starting to understand what people wanted.
What they want.
Like I realized, okay, if I answer this question, they're coming for this answer.
And then you would direct them back to your blog in some kind of way, or to your
what's that?
You would direct them back to your writing or your blog in some type of way?
Not really. I didn't have to because they were searching for it and it just wouldn't come up. So they would be in the forums asking. But once I started writing it, when they started searching, I would come up,
Oh, so
when I realized, like, I'd see a pattern, I'd be like, okay, these people are all, one second, I'm going to put this on mute because I might start getting a lot of calls here. We don't want that. There we go. Okay. So, where was I?
You're talking about how you were answering.
So I would see the patterns. Yeah, I would look for the ones that were patterns that weren't just ones that were randomly asked. I would look for ones that were repeatedly asked, to start out. And then I would call those primary posts as I, moved forward and started putting my own strategies together to replicate. So I would take those primary posts and those were the ones that the people were asking for all the time. And it would, be the basic structural pillars of my sites. Those were the pages that were the most important. And today, on today on WordPress, we use those as pages versus posts. So that was my approach, but it was very solid.
How did you know to even I mean, how did you know it wasn't, like you always said, it wasn't many tutorials out there of people doing this sort of thing. How did you even know to even do that?
I don't know. I think it was just instinct, because you want people to come to your site. So you obviously want them to have the information that they're searching for. So it was like, okay, if they're searching for this, let me make sure that I have the answer for that, and I was terrible at SEO. Like it wasn't my thing. So I never worried about SEO. I would just write it and they would come, but I didn't hit any super crazy traffic. I did start out, I think the first week I started out, I had about 13 people to my site.
13.
And then, within a few weeks I had like 100 and something, and then it would just keep going up. And then testing with all the ads with Google, which, Google's heat map, it's great, but it doesn't work for all niches nor all designs for sites. So I spent a lot of time testing with that. And I'd realize, like, okay, I changed the color on this today and I just lost several $1,000s. So it really was all testing. It was all testing things. And then to speed things up, I started other sites. I would start multiple sites just to test colors, And sometimes, like, I would link to one of those sites, to an article that I wrote that was relative to that site, but that one would just have different colors or a different layout or something. And I would test to see what people were doing with that as well. And I just really started to get into their heads of what are they drawn to? What's magnetic for them,
Interesting. Nice.
So it took me about 2 years to become a 6-figure blogger, and then another year to be around 7. to hit
That's
the
so
six
fast.
figure. Yeah,
That's really
yeah.
fast. I mean, you're
But
right.
like I said, I had realized like I was working so hard that my wrists were so bad that I was like, oh my gosh, like this is not sustainable.
Mm,
So eventually I had to decide, okay, something has to change here. What am I going to do about this? And I did the same thing that I did in that street in Los Altos Street, where I started to ask myself, what do I want? And I thought, okay, I want to be able to go travel and be somewhere where I can stay for a couple months and really get into the culture, because I'm just a culture junkie. I just like that. So I wanted to be able to sit there for a while. I didn't want to have to worry about working or only going away for the American 2 week or 1 week holiday. I wanted to be able to stay. So I was like, okay, so I don't want this, but I do want to be healthy. I do want to have a lot of off time, and I do want to be able to have that freedom, that extended freedom where I could do what I want for long periods of time. So I started thinking, okay, any strategy that I put in place needs to be something that is automated and something that will let me take like 3 to 4 months off at a time if I want. So
mm,
that started something in my head too, where it became a habit where I was constantly asking myself, how can I automate this? And I still do that. I'm always doing that. How can I automate this? Okay, how can I get this, so it's something that just manages itself. Um, but still doing, whatever it needs to do to help people. So that's where I ended up going with that one. And
nice.
it ended up working really, really well.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And how
Yeah.
long did you stay out of the
Yeah.
last year? How long did you stay out of the country? Where did you stay at last year?
Oh, I told myself when I hit the 6 figures a month, I said, okay, when I hit 6 figures a month, I'm going to take a year off and travel. And instead it ended up being like around 5, 4 or 5.
Oh,
Yeah.
when I tell you a story, I was working on a job that I didn't like. I was mildly depressed, if you will, and I just started
Huh.
doing what you were doing. I said, let me just start looking on the internet to find something that I can do, and that's when I discovered your. I discovered that when you were speaking at that conference, and it was, and I saw,
Mm-hmm.
I've looked all sorts of programs and just I've been, looking at the stuff for years, but it was something about your conference, your comments, and not only saying that you wanted freedom, but it was, I could tell the genuineness in you. Like, I was like, she
Yeah.
is genuine. And I would watch that video or just continue to watch that video, and it would inspire me to do something like, I
I
got to do
love that. I'm so humbled.
something. Yeah.
That during the one that you're talking about, that video, I was so new to speaking that I didn't really, and it's also been edited, like there's been clips of it taken out to make it shorter, and a lot of the answers, like, or the things that I explained in a little more detail, are missing. So I need to actually go through that again and answer those questions a little bit better, because I do get questions about it. But I'm so touched that I was so new at that, and you still felt that, that kind of connection with it.
I,
So I like that. That's
for
very
sure. Yeah, for sure. And I speak and I do motivational speaking, and it was something about the way that you were speaking and the way that you connected. It just resonated with me. It was just so real and and it was just, and the speakers that I like is Tony Robbins and Dyer and all these people, but it wasn't. It was that genuineness that came through, and it was like, I don't know her, but I want that, and I want, and it was like, like a mentor. Like, you became my mentor. You didn't even know it. It was like my mentor. And I wasn't even really thinking about really going into blogging or anything, but I was like, I do something, but I like that. So anyway, so I could talk about that forever.
ah.
Love it. So question. So here's a question. So today, do you think that a person can still start a blog today? Like, I'm starting my blog, and and you looked at it a little bit. Can a person start a blog today and still make this, decent money?
Absolutely. Now is like the time to do that.
Mm,
Now you have so many resources, so many tutorials, just so many opportunities. Niches are growing. The internet's growing. That's a really powerful time. It's a great time to jump in.
okay. All right. Good, good, good. That's good to know, because I'm sure the audience will want to know that. So one of the things that, okay, so back up to the automation. And let me ask you this question first. You said that you automate everything, and I know your story that you work once every 3 or 4 months, and you automate things and that sort of thing. So what do you do when you do work what is it that you have to do? What is it that you have to do when you do have to go to work like those once every 2 or 3 months?
You know, it's very different now from what I used to do.
Uh-huh.
Back then, like I enjoyed taking that much time off. I don't so much now. I'll take off lots of time. Like there'll be, I mean, plenty of days where I'm just like, I don't think I'm going to work today. Or I'll be like, I'm going to go to Europe for a few months or whatever. But um, I don't do that consistently anymore where I used to. I used to sit down and write for like 2 weeks. Like I would go sit in a hotel in Sydney for 2 weeks, lock the door and write content for, you know, for 2 weeks, just solid content. And then I would schedule it to go out. I'll still do a lot of that, but sadly, and I really miss it, is I don't get to do a lot of my own content now. If there's something I need done, I will do either a video or a voice tape of it and then have somebody else write it up and then go through it myself so it has my voice. But it's still not the same. And I really miss that because I'm a writer. But yeah, but so I don't really have a lot of time to do that. But a lot of my time today is focused on numbers and marketing strategy and researching. This is the most time actually, is researching what people want, what people need, what can I give them. It's hard. Like you have to find something that is, you can see a product that you think is going to be really amazing to offer to your readers. And you pull it up and start researching it and realize, okay, like this isn't, you know, it's not quite there yet. Or let me test it with my readers and see how they respond. And they don't really jump on it. Like there's a lot involved, even with as much as I've done already with testing and everything. Like sometimes I'll have 6 sites up. Well, I used to, I don't do so much anymore, but sometimes I would have 6 sites up just testing different products or different design structures or different social media, you know, connection outlets, things like that. So it's a lot of testing. A lot of testing.
And that was going to be my next question. How important is testing? Like that was going to be my next question. Like how important is testing? I'm going to turn my volume up.
Imperative. I mean, if you want to make money and if you want to be successful,
you got to test. You got to test.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next question.
But you know, I'll say this too: is I can't like say that like, okay, this plugin works great for testing, or this A and B testing is the way to go. It's different for every niche, and it's different for every reader. So a lot of people don't realize that, and they'll just plug in whatever, you know, XYZ blogger says to do. And the truth is, you really have to second guess that, because you have to figure out what's going to be best for you and for your readers, what's going to fit better, you know?
Right.
So a lot of times too, like I use, even if I don't monetize a site with Google AdSense, I will still put ads on there just so that I can use those numbers, because those numbers are really helpful. And then there's like, what's the other one? Mark Jeni owns this one. I can't think of the name of it right now. When we think of it, I'll give it to you. I'll give you the link, but it's basically a heat pad that watches and tracks what people are doing, looking at, touching on your site. That thing is brilliant. But I'll give you that one. Why can't I think of that name? Yeah. But that's brilliant. I actually, you know, somebody suggested that to me, and they were like, yeah, this really amazing guy, Mark Jeni, he owns this company. And I was like, well, you know, what does he do? And he was explaining to me this product. He didn't say his name, really didn't say his name. So he was telling me about it. And then when he finally said his name, I was like, oh my God, I know him. He was in Tony Robbins Platinum with me.
Oh, really?
Just happened to be. So I just like called him up and was like, hey, I was like, I hear you got this, and this. And we ended up talking and working something out. But it was cool to know that there was somebody else that was like being recommended that was he was like, he's got so much good character and so much integrity. Don't know.
That's all
Hold on one second. I'm going to check, because he's probably barking at like a water bottle or something.
Yeah, do you
She. I said he, she. Come here. No, bye. All right. She's so cute. All right, where were we?
Yeah, so you were just talking about how that product, I'm thinking Mark Jeni, the product, but yeah, so good. So it's all those two. That's good to know for me, like, so, because I've always thought, and I've heard other people say, and maybe they were trying to sell something, oh, you can't blog today, it's not You can't do the same thing that you used to do. So that's one of the questions I had. Can you still do
That's
that?
a good thing though, you know? Things that were done years ago weren't that productive and weren't, they don't fit today's market. So it's a good thing that you can't do what you used to be able to do.
Yeah, yeah, not bad.
That's my thinking on
I'm good.
it. Yeah.
So you also talk about giving people what they want and then maybe giving them what they need. So for instance, I think you've said, for me, that was so good. It was like they think they want something and they come to your site or, and then they figure out, and then you give them something else, like what they really need. What do you mean by that? And hopefully I did that justice.
Okay. So usually when somebody is searching for something, that's what they want, or that's just an easy way to look at it. What they need is typically something they don't know exists. It's
Right.
like an advanced knowledge or another product that meets their needs that's more advanced to that. You know what? I should probably think of an example, but nothing's
Say my
really coming
recruiting.
to mind yet.
See if you can do my recruiting. So my site, Info Athlete, right? So I'm helping students get recruited to colleges. I'm helping students, these student athletes with all sorts of things, maybe giving them information on CTE and head injuries, information on college scholarships, information on how to speak, wealth management, how to, keep yourself out of the dangers of maybe, these sexual harassment sort of issues and lawsuits and those sorts of things. Because I've worked in human resources before, I understand the perils of that, and just the understanding how to take care of your, like I said before, your finances, your money, your person, or the whole person. So how do I, and my target audience, I definitely will target like student athletes, like that are even in probably junior high school, middle school, junior high school, on up through college, and maybe even the parents too, because they want to know and help their students, get to college and get through college and beyond. So
Mm-hmm.
what do you? And I know this kind of throwing it at you on the cursory level, but how do I start thinking about how to find and test what do these people want and that
When
need?
you talk to them, what do they say? What do they ask?
Well,
What
they
do they come to
all
you for?
they all ask about, and it's true because most of them don't know, but most of these students, they want to know how they can get in school, because most of the people that I talk to, they're not these top level people who colleges are just beating down their door trying to get them to come
Right.
to school. Those people are, most of the time, they're fine, and now those type of people need other things, right? They need to be able to make the right decision over what the school to go to, or those other things like wealth management. But other students who talk to me, they want to know how can I find a college? How can I get into college? How can I continue my planned career going forward? That's a lot of what they talk to me about.
Okay, so that's what they want. They want to go to college, right?
Hmm.
But all the other stuff that you offer them, like about the wealth management, all that knowledge, all that research that you've already done and that you have the answers to, that's what they need.
Hmm. Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
And
does.
in simplified, that's it. Yeah. You
Mm.
cover a lot of what they need that they don't even know exists yet. Like that's not even on their realm. It's not even on the horizon yet.
True.
Yeah,
And so you point them to what they want and then give them what they need. Mm. That makes
absolutely.
that makes a lot of sense. Um,
Yeah.
so, and then there's ways to do that, right? And then while we were going to talk today, we were going to talk about forms. That's one of the things that we want to talk about. So, how do I thought that maybe, and you talk about like forms are for people who want this sort of engagement and connection. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so is form something that I should be thinking about? I always thought that maybe I could use that to have these people connect with each other, share ideas, talk about, after the game or whatever they want to talk about, and then really sort of boost their engagement. But I'm a novice, so.
For yours, yeah, for yours, it would probably be a really good idea because they need that connection and they need to be able to help each other just from like an emotional support perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than it'd be another thing that you're giving them that they need that rather than what they want.
Hmm.
But so the thing with forums is there are a lot of work. They're really a lot of work, especially to get started, but they will require maintenance forever. And you can't just let them go on automation. not completely. You always have to have some kind of a moderator that can be in there and make sure that, keep the peace, keep the
Mm,
spam out, make sure things are always updated because it needs to be functional at all times. So it's a lot of work. And just to get it started, to keep the activity, to get the ball rolling, you're talking about starting with a teeny tiny flake of snow and then growing it into that huge ball, So it takes a while to get them started. So you have to usually yourself have to be active in there, or at least have somebody that's the right person to be in there, that's there to answer questions and to stimulate some conversation. They have to be very sociable, very approachable, polite,
mm,
which I've had some problems with things like that. It really has to be the right people that are getting it going. The thing with forums too, though, is that it really does have a lot of benefits. But aside from the amount of work, that it makes it worth it sometimes, if you have a good amount of content coming in, because it is free content from the internet. Like for the search engines, you don't have to constantly create posts and things because everybody's doing it for you. So that's a really nice thing. And I used to make posts out of those. Google doesn't like that so much anymore.
mm,
So I stopped doing it, and it really wasn't serving my readers anyway. I'd rather direct them back to that. So I'll create topics for mine that are like, say people are talking about something in the weight loss arena that's got a lot of points to it, and then I'll link to several threads that are active about that specific topic. So that will help them find it through Google. But usually Google's pretty good about how they index forums and how they treat it. As long as you can keep the content up to date. I mean, not up to date, but active. If you can keep it an active forum, you can get a lot of traffic from it. And then you could feed that back to your own site. So like every thread that I have in my forums, like if I have a thread that's on healthy food eating, those, like even next to the titles of the titles of like each individual, what do you call it? I'm drawing a blank. There are links heading back to topics on the site, that resources on the site that are posts, those pillar posts that cover all those basic FAQs. So a lot of times I'll feed them back in there too, in case they need help right away. That's there for them. But it is a great way to feed traffic back and forth, and not have to do too much work to keep people coming in. It's a
mm,
nice way also to do like support forums. Like I have a lot of support groups in mine,
mhm.
and that not only keeps them coming back every month, but it's a huge way for them to meet their need for social connection and love and connection and all that.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that alone is, yeah, that's another one. That's one of all of our human needs.
cool.
So for yours especially, they need that, because they need that support to know that they're on the right track and to know that they're making progress. That is also the goal that you're trying to do too. You're not you're celebrating the process of it. Does that make sense? Like you want them to enjoy the journey. So providing whatever you can that helps them to do that, whether it's a support group, whether it's your advice, whether it's just the resources where they know they can go somewhere to get answers while they're learning and figuring things out. That's your goal, is to make that as pleasurable as possible,
Mm,
as satisfying as possible.
mm,
So that's another thing you can do through those forums. So anyway, anytime you can meet their needs through that, that's their human needs. You're, creating those raving fans and doing what you're supposed to be doing, which is providing,
mm.
valuable content, or sorry, providing value.
Like your love slaves that you
Yes.
have. So just a couple more questions. I want to be respectful of your time. I mean, we're going on almost 45 minutes or so. Um, so you said before that, and I'm gonna let you look at mine. I made those changes to the site that you recommended. Actually, I made them
Okay.
today. Couple more questions. So you said that now that you would use YouTube. What I didn't know is, so how do you connect? How do you make the connection between, like, once we put the YouTube video up and your blog? How does that all connect together? Because you said,
Um,
and maybe correct me if I'm wrong about what you were saying about YouTube and using YouTube.
do you mean connecting them to like send traffic there?
Yeah, so you were saying that nowadays it's about using YouTube or using YouTube videos. Did I
Yeah.
get that wrong or
No,
no?
you're right. I think YouTube is where it's at. Um, honestly, so I see people putting links below, the thing that sometimes they won't even say anything about going to their site or anything. But
Oh,
honestly, me, I think about that and I'm like, all you have to do is ask them. Stop by the site and read this article.
okay.
Ask them. Like, you don't just put the link, say it, and they'll do it. They'll, if you've already added value and you've already got a connection with them and you're providing direction, they actually need you to say, go to this page. In fact, here's the link down below. Not everybody does that, and they're missing out because they could be helping people a lot more by just giving them that direct guidance of what to do next.
So I should have an article written already, and I should have that video like today. Once I link this video, and I'd say, hey, should have an article written already on my blog, and say, hey, go to my blog and read this site. Is that what you're saying I should do? Okay.
Absolutely. Don't just write it though. You have to say it.
Yeah, you have
Say
to
it.
put it inside of the video. Inside of the video.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. And so
By the way, go to this page and this is where you find this. So here I've got these resources up for you.
got you. So the first thing, so I've changed my site around and I've done all of that. So the first thing for me to be persistent is to do what? I got camps and stuff that I'm going to invite people. I'm going to get some business cards. I'm going to say, hey, come to my blog. And, I got it linked to like MailChimp where people can sign up and get all these readers. So my first thing, and so if you were me, last question, what would you do to, and I know I kind of went around and what would you do today? What would you do? How would you start? Like your first day blogging, how would you start?
How would I start with my first day blogging?
Yeah, how would I start? Like for me, I'm trying to build this site, and I'm trying to monetize it. And so, what would you do today? I have a website up.
I would think it backwards. So like kind of like I did where you think it backwards. What do you want? You ask yourself, what do you want? Then you ask yourself, like, really, what's your passion? Because you don't want to start anything that's not something you're extremely interested in and passionate about. Like it's going to be something long-term, something that you really enjoy, because otherwise you're looking for a world of hurt of not being able to keep pushing forward with it. So that's where I would start. And then once you're there, you can start reading other blogs that are on the topic or even similar, like just in the range of where you're at. Reading other blogs is a really, really, really helpful thing to do. Like I do it all the time just to keep myself up to date on things and just to know what other people are, what their insight is on things. It's just a way to kind of keep yourself young in the field,
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good one too, is to start reading other people's blogs on that topic and then really decide, like, is this the route that I want to go? And then start asking yourself, how can I do this on a different level how can I add value? What can I do here to really add value? What do I have to share? And then the fun part is really starting to research what people want. And that's when you start plugging into Google. What are people searching for? And then when you think that you know what they're searching for and what they really want, you keep asking yourself, because chances are you don't have it yet.
Yeah.
So the more that you do that, the more research you can start doing on those people that are already searching for the topic. That will help you. You can also look at the other blogs too and see, okay, they have their primary posts, which their pages are on these topics. So they've probably already figured out that this is what those people need, these readers need. So that's a good way to get some quick direction. And then you can just kind of put in your own take on things and your own, what you've already learned and your experience and your knowledge. Yeah. So that's where I would get started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a tool out there? I know there's one tool you have on your website where you could search and then you could figure out how many searches were for that particular subject that you were searching on.
So many. I love Moz. Moz Pro, MOZ. I love Moz. I think they're the best. And then there's also SEM Rush.
SEM Rush. Yeah, I had that one.
Yeah, I like SEM Rush, a lot of it. Some of the things like the backlinks, I think that is not quite where Google says to be, where they're like telling you to, constantly do the disavow list and pushing on that. Got to be careful with that, because I think Google is smart enough to figure out what's spam and what's not, and you can really hurt yourself with that one. So that side of it, I leave it alone. But as far as like the tracking and the keyword research, it's pretty good. And it's another thing too, is you have to realize too, that when you go to those sites and they're talking about, here's the number of people that are searching for the X, Y, and Z. Take it with a grain of salt, you know? So
Mm,
you really use that as a guidance, it's not necessarily accurate.
right.
So
Okay.
you have to keep that in mind too. It's really just about a measuring of up and downs kind of, or which one's higher, a hierarchy, which one's searched for the most. So don't really pay attention too much to those numbers because that can really throw you off.
I'm glad you said that. That's a good point. It's a good point to mention. Well,
Yeah.
good. Well, good.